welcome back to the World of Martial Arts show. I'm Nathan, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Kurt and Mick. And today we're talking about beginners in martial arts, specifically how to get them started and the barriers to learning that they might face early on. So Kurt, you've got a new program you're starting out. What should new students and members of your club kind of expect, and how will you get them started?
That is a good question, especially as my classes for this new program start in about 3 days. We'll see how clever I am at this, right? So getting people through the door for the first time is always a challenge, I think, in martial art. There's already people who are primed and ready to go, who are predisposed to do this. They're the people that seek us out, that seek the school owners, the teachers, whatever, the styles out. A simple Google search will tell them where to go. But sometimes trying to share what your program is with the potential student and show them how it aligns with what it is they might be looking for can be a challenge. At least for me, I find it challenging. I know as a martial artist, just like in any other kind of art, it can be tricky to try to sell ourselves or sell this art, right? To be a salesperson for what we do. And boy, is that important to have a successful business. I've had my most recent gym that I had for a long time, it went under because of COVID. And I think probably if I'd been better at sales and some of the business stuff, then things may have gone a little better or smoother. So, what I'm trying to do now is really focus locally on the community that my school is located in and try to share with my community members, with my neighbors, what I think is the beauty of martial art and the benefits of this practice. And so I'm kind of leaning into that a little more because that's what's benefited me and it's what I can speak of honestly. As ways to get people in, right now we're offering a free trial class. Like I think probably everybody does something to that end, but we'll eventually be doing what I used to do with a previous program. About every 6 weeks, we would have a free introductory workshop. And that was a really successful option for us. And I know we're not necessarily talking about the business end of martial arts. And if we are, I'm the worst person to talk to about it. But I did find it was a good opportunity for people to come in and get a sense of not just what is your program like, but what is this art like? And also, what am I like as a teacher? What's the vibe of the room, of the group? What's the atmosphere there? Am I going to get yelled at? Am I going to get beat up? That kind of thing. People want to know ahead of time before they sign on the dotted line. So having that as a kind of, like a feeder class so that people can get a sense of what you do is always successful for us in the past. So that's my plan now.
Yeah. Have you tried different things? I know like the traditional martial arts schools often do like a one-to-one intro and kind of sign them up on the spot. Other people let people come straight onto the class. I was wondering, you think the workshop thing's the one that's kind of worked best for you?
Yeah, because I used to do a free intro session and one-on-one and at the first gym that I had, and that worked pretty well. But it's very time consuming, and that worked better for me when I didn't have kids, but now I've got 2 4-year-olds and a newborn baby, and I don't have that kind of availability, and I don't have the roster of, young, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed martial art trainers and instructors underneath me in the program that could help do those things like other schools, like an established Taekwondo school, for example, might have a whole legion of black belts that can help with that stuff. When it's just me, that's pretty hard to do. So we said, let's just do it every 6 weeks and put everybody together.
Yeah, no, I found it the exact same thing. And don't be so hard on yourself about the business side of things. I mean, someone once said to me, it's very rare to meet someone who is a good martial artist and a good businessman. You meet a lot who are terrible martial artists but good businessmen, and vice versa. I know a lot of really good martial artists who are awful businessmen. To be good at both is pretty rare. But
that's true for any kind of art, isn't it? Like you don't have a musician get off stage and then negotiate the contract for the next gig necessarily. You know what I mean? They have a manager for a reason. Their job is to go up there and play the song, and hopefully I'm good at playing the song that we all play here. But yeah, on the back end, that's not my strong suit.
So yeah, at the moment we're doing a mix of, so we're doing like the taster session. I don't really let people come straight onto the class anymore. I found it's quite disruptive to the class, and it's not that beneficial for the person. I find if we have a group of beginners together, apart from anything, they get to know some other beginners, so that when they go onto a class, they know some other people at the same level as them. Also, I can talk about stuff that I wouldn't normally talk about. I can talk about the gym philosophy a bit more. I can kind of, chat to them, and even filter out some people that don't want to come onto the classes, and filter people through towards beginners courses and things. We're doing quite a few really short beginners courses. I know, like CrossFit, their big thing is their on-ramp, and it's something that I've looked at. And when you read up on what it is, it's usually like 4 to 6 weeks, several sessions a week, and it's about teaching the foundational movements of CrossFit that you'll be doing on the classes. It's about the language, it's about the terminology, it's about like the philosophy, it's also about like socializing and getting used to the environment. And that's essentially what we try and do with our beginners courses now. We just bring them in and just do lots of like, oh, this is what I'm saying, this is the equipment, this is what we're doing. And it's such an easy way to just bring them in on that on-ramp and then get them straight onto the classes from there. I found it so much better than just throwing people straight in.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think, that's valuable for me to hear with this new program starting. The idea that the beginners are all coming in together, or rather that they're going to recognize other beginners on the next session. That's pretty cool. And I've seen that happen every time. And all of a sudden those people are sort of friends. They're in it together, oh, will you work with me today? I also don't know what I'm doing, kind of thing, and yeah, I think that really helps ease some of the anxiety over starting with this. And I always try to teach from that place in that class too, like I always point out, like even Bruce Lee had a first day of martial art class, like doesn't matter who you think of, everybody has to start in the same place. And so everybody in class will be sympathetic to the fact that you're starting the same place they did. Nobody just wakes up able to do this. That's not how this works. So there should be, especially if the culture of the gym is welcoming, there should be a lot of sympathy and a lot of like just graciousness towards that. So, but what I think will be interesting with a brand new program is I'm curious, I may not need to have an on-ramp for a little bit because everybody's going to be new. You know what I mean? So I think I want to report back on how this goes in 6 months or something, because right now it might be that every class we're going, this is your left hand, this is your jab, that kind of thing. And really just starting from the very beginning, because the more seasoned people that I have that I'm bringing with me, they're going to be helping in a leadership capacity anyway. So, I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out. So I'm sure I'll do an on-ramp to some degree, but the program itself is already sort of an on-ramp, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I find hard is showing too much to these guys when they first come in. When you just said everyone's had their first day, it's that burden of knowledge thing. It's hard to remember what it was like when you've just first walked in. And sometimes I'll teach a beginner's session on one of these, like basically an on-ramp, like a beginner's course, and you teach a whole bunch of stuff and like, cool, they've got an idea, they've met the coaches, they've done this, they've tried this, they've done a little bit of stand-up, a little bit of clinch, a little bit of ground. And then I step back and think, God, if I'd done all that on my first day, I'd have been completely confused. I just end up like, I just want to show them everything, I want to get them in there.
It's funny just saying that, guys. It's been so interesting listening to both of you just riff on this. I literally had the burden of knowledge thing. I just had that this morning. I have a grandfather who's a couple of years older than me. He's probably 56. Really, really good boxer locally. And he's bringing his grandson training. And to get him back in, because he's sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit. He won't mind me saying it. So I've got him in, and because he's a good boxer, I've been getting him to actually work with a couple of the guys at a specific station on the circuit. Because of COVID, I've had to rejig everything. So while I'm listening to you guys talking about CrossFit, it's like if you walk into the second half of my class, it looks like a CrossFit class that just does martial arts, because it's like we can sort of work with partners, but then you don't know how a lot of people are going to be with that. So instead of having to have that awkward conversation with everyone, it's like, right, okay, well, there's a station, then you go, then you go, then you go. But the burden of proof, it was because I was teaching today, and obviously we start working, and all he wanted to do was some stand-up clinch, ironically for the street. So he wanted to do some, and obviously I start going down this cool, you know, crashing for the clinch, Muay Thai plum. Next thing you know, we're breaking out of the plum. Then I'm grabbing an arm drag and stuff, and then I'm like, whoa, Mick, calm down. You've just done the whole, what you do when you teach white collar boxing over at Nathan Leverton's, where these guys are going, no, your other left. So when they throw the right hand, you go, no, the other left. You know, so they don't even know left and right. That's my joke that I always do. And I'm thinking, oh God, yeah. As soon as they started throwing one thing correctly, Mick, you immediately did the Lomachenko thing, which is like, oh well, you can do it too. And that's a difficult place to be, Kurt.
Yeah, well, and it's, you know, that kind of teaching, like we talked about, I think on the show before, is like seminar style teaching, right? Where you're just giving gobs of information because the students hopefully are taking notes and they're going to work that later at another time. And that's different than a beginner class, which is not a seminar, right? That's not a workshop, or I guess it could be a workshop depending on how you use the term, but you know, you're not trying to load them down with information. I wonder if to satisfy that itch, because like Mick said, sometimes once you get going, you're so excited about the art, you just want to show it. If it wouldn't be interesting to do or to offer a kind of seminar that's like really showing the breadth of what it is that you teach, you know, where Nathan, if you have all these transitions to all these from standing to clinch to ground or whatever, you're going, boy, maybe I shouldn't have done all that in an intro. Maybe it would be cool for that same beginner student, if they knew going in, you're going to get a whole bunch of data and it's going to be fun. You know, that's the point, is we're really going to jam out today. People might still be into that, but they're probably or potentially caught off guard if it's pre-framed as this is for beginners, right?
Yeah. Oh, how much to give people in that sense. Like occasionally, you know, I'll be doing stuff when people come in. So they're like, oh, what's that he's doing? I mean, back in the day, I used to roll with like one of the, you know, main guys or something, and I just put an absolute tooling on them. But I'll be using the stuff that I was about to teach on the beginners course. So then people would be like, and they're, you know, they're looking, whispering to each other. So I used to do that quite a bit. And also, obviously, you know, during the class, you'll be showing the basic move, and then you throw a little something in there so that they go, oh, what was that? And you're like, oh yeah, next time you learn that later down the line, you know. But yeah, I do tend to teach too much. It depends why they're there. Obviously, we've talked about before about why people start. If someone comes in with a preconception that, you know, I already know how to do something, I'm going to be a fighter, they just want a bit of information possibly. But a lot of people who come in, it's like they're just going to need to like speak to people and feel comfortable and have a positive experience, and that's it. I mean, we do a little survey on our waiting list, and the number one thing, and it says, you know, you're coming down for self-defense, you know, competition, or different things. Number one, every, like, out of hundreds of people, improve confidence. So surely like dealing with that on the first session would be the most important thing to make them keep coming back.
Well, yeah, I'm curious then to ask you guys exactly that. I mean, I know you just answered part of it, Nathan, but you know, as we're talking about not just getting students through the door, but keeping them engaged in the art, not just for our business ends bottom line, but because we believe in the art, we want people to continue to engage in it throughout their life. What do you think, if you have an intro course or a feeder class, an on-ramp of some kind, what are the themes outside of your techniques that you think are important that will help to really grab not just the attention of the student, but that kind of inside part, you know? So it's easy for them to write down on the paper, or easier, confidence. But if they need confidence, they're not going to come up and tell you, hey, I'm here because I need more confidence. That would be a confident thing to do, right? So that's not going to happen. This sort of anonymity of the survey is a great thing. What are some of those themes then that you know, or the atmosphere of that beginner class that you think is important to sort of set that stage for them, apart from the act of fighting?
Oh, wow. So yeah, I mean, we have a basic philosophy, like a mission statement that we stole. I can't remember who I stole it from, another instructor. But it was I literally state this at the end of the class and then go through why it applied to that class and why it apply to future sessions. So essentially what I say to people is, I want all the training to be safe, I want it to be fun. I want it to be progressive. So I'm like, by the end of this session, and this is kind of the spiel I give at the end of like a taster session or a beginner course, like it should have been safe. You should have walked out that door with the same amount of limbs and same amount of brain cells as you came in. It should have been fun. Like no one went away going, oh, I don't want to come back. I got beat up. I didn't like it. Someone was, horrible to me, whatever. I didn't understand what was going on. And it should have been progressive. You should know more now and be able to do more with your body than when you first came in. And if I achieve all those three things, then that's the thing, I can define the success of it, and then I say that's the success of it, and that's what we're going to do on the classes. And the kicker to that is always, the only reason I wouldn't let you join is because you're going to affect one of those things for someone else. You're going to affect their progress, you're going to affect their safety, you're going to affect their enjoyment. And then I just sum that up as saying it's no dickhead rule, basically. But again, if they get that philosophy, if they're going to be on board with us, then I think I've sold it to them then. Because they go, well, it's going to be safe, so confidence-wise, that helps them. It's going to be fun, so it's something I'm doing, that's going to be enjoyable, and I'm going to get better. I'm going to learn something, So that's usually kind of how I sell it early on. I think we forget sometimes what kind of like an alien experience is going to be for most people, coming in, standing on a mat with no shoes on, and hearing different terms and doing different things. And I think that can put someone off, or it could make them love it. One of my big problems is as people, we've been in martial arts for a long time, and we're probably going to continue to be in it. Not everyone who comes to that door is going to be a lifelong martial artist, but it's very hard to talk to people going, oh no, you're just going to have a go at this. I talk to people like, oh no, you're still going to be with me in 10 years. And on the one hand, I want to assume that, and I want to teach like that, but of course not everyone who takes up a sport or a hobby is going to do it for the rest of their life. And so trying to provide it in that way and frame it in that way so it's attractive to them is quite difficult. I don't want to put them off by assuming they're going to do it forever.
That is a huge, very important point for me to hear, maybe for you guys or for listeners, because I'm always so surprised how many tourists we get. You know what I mean? There's more people out there. My wife is like this. There's more people out there than I realized that just like trying things. They're just open-minded, and they're like, that sounds cool. My wife did roller derby for a while because she was like, I always thought that shit would look kind of cool. So she did it. I don't have that thing where I'll just go, well, a little bit maybe, but where I'll just go try all this different stuff. This is my thing. So this is what I do. And martial art is, for so many of us, a lifelong personal practice, So I always do that same thing. I teach to everybody, 10 years from now, when you're blah, 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 blah. And you can see the look on people's faces of what did I just get myself into? Or what kind of weird culty perspective is this guy coming from, or whatever, Well, they're like, I'm just going to do this for a couple months. And on the end of that, it's also then challenging as instructors to not take it personally when they leave, that it's not necessarily because they didn't like the art or they didn't like the artist or the teacher. It's because that was their take on it. It's something they wanted to try, and they fulfilled their little mission with it, whatever it was. That's why so many people leave when they get blue belt or whatever, whatever your art is, because that was the thing that they wanted. And I think it's cool to be able to honor that and to help facilitate that, but it does affect your retention, and it can affect your ego a little bit,
Yeah, my good friend Wayne Stokes, he's come out with a great line. He won't mind me saying this. He was the first person that actually verbalized this, is the best way I can say. I thought of this for a long time, and he turned around to me and he says, the thing with martial arts, Mick, and I went, what? He goes, everyone quits. And the minute he said it, I was like, and he went, Mick, everyone quits. And he says, and as an instructor, you've got two jobs. First job is to teach, and the second job is to prolong the process before they quit. And I was like, what? And I thought about it for a second. I thought, this sounds like a really, really Machiavellian sort of businessman move, And he went, no, they've got to quit. He said, but you've got to remember, I've got bills to pay. I've got this. And I know that, that they'll quit sometimes. It won't be an injury or anything. It'll just be like life gets in the way. We know this, right? But it's that bit where it's like, oh, well, you know, jiu-jitsu is probably the best one, Nathan. The first injury you ever get, right, that's the one that most people just go straight away. And then, you know, there's that classic thing that we know about jiu-jitsu, which is show me a brown belt who hasn't had knee surgery and I'll show you a brown belt who lets everyone pass their guard. That's me, by the way. You know what I mean? It's like knee surgery versus passing the guard. Passing the guard makes you never going to finish me anyway, and I'll just reverse it later anyway. So that's the way I look at it. But it's that like the prolonging the quitting process. But what I'd like to just ask you guys is, like, that's brought us into something, and I don't. It's not an off-topic thing at all. It's the quitting thing that directly goes back to why people are getting into it in the first place. And then the whole thing while we're talking about is like why you start martial arts. Like Nathan, you mentioned that you have a questionnaire that you get to fill out. I've never done that before. And now this is the thing that's going to sound a bit weird when I ask you this. Do you ever look at people's questionnaires 5 or 6 years down the line when they're really entrenched in the art, and then look at their questionnaires and see the answers and go, you were lying on that, mate? Either that or you've changed dramatically, because that's what I've always found with martial arts. The guy who says that he's learned one reason is normally the guy who like eats tofu and wants to be a gentle fucking barefoot warrior. And then literally within 3 years where he can actually kick the shit out of someone, he ends up being your gym cop. You know what I mean? Like, but wait a minute, weren't you the fucking vegan that walked in here, and now you basically you're Judge Dredd in a gi? What happened there? So yeah, I'd just like to know, Nathan, have you seen that in your experience?
I haven't gone back and looked at the actual things, but obviously, you know, martial arts changes people. So yeah, whatever they said when they came in, they're probably a different person a couple of years down the line. One thing I did want to get it onto, if we don't mind circling around to it, is so we've got some beginners in the room, we've got some people getting started, talking about the barriers to learning, as they say in, you know, in education, about like basically the problems with teaching beginners. You have a diverse group, you have people with all different needs, you have people, there are certain, you know, we've all had people who stick out like a sore thumb in the class for various different reasons. I was wondering about different things you've kind of faced with beginners, where you go, especially we talked about us as martial artists and lifelong, like you can make assumptions sometimes. You can make assumptions about why someone's there and what they're going to be able to take from your teaching. But just because you're teaching something doesn't mean learning is taking place. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on, you know, students that you've had, and think maybe changes you've had to make with teaching beginners to kind of get them into the classes.
It's so timely. It's mad because I had this conversation today in my class Sunday morning, because my best students aren't martial artists. They're very good at martial arts, but not one of them came to me to do martial arts. These are guys who turned up with their kids, and I'm like, so what are you doing, man? And they were like, yeah, I'm just going to wait around until my kid finishes. And I throw them a pair of shorts and I say, nah, jump on in, man. You're here for 2 hours anyway. Do it. Kid quits. They keep training. And I've got a few of those guys now. And like, I won't lie to you, it's an absolute breath of fresh air. Like, Kurt, when you were talking about the new program you've got going, it sounds ace, because it's like you are looking to give the great gift that we have without well, basically the amount of absolute neurotic side effects that you get by being a martial artist or being into martial arts. Yeah, so you get normal people, they come in, they work out, they feel good, they don't buy into any of the homina shit. If you try to speak to them about chi or ki, they'd be like, what you fucking on about, dude? It's physics. Oh, so you generated power from midichlorians? No, it's just mass, speed, time. It's just physics, man. If that was the case, Isaac Newton would have been Helio Gracie. You know what I'm saying? It's that whole shit where it's like normal people will come in and do it. And it was really good because I was teaching this combination. So we're doing some Jun Fan, going into some Thai, doing some really, really cool stuff. And I had one guy who's a real martial artist who wanted to know how we could dovetail these different arts into it. And then one of the guys who's like a really like just a normal guy walked in. He goes, "So you're going to do that stuff that you say looks like a Chinese waiter. Then you do that stuff that you're going to do outside of a chip shop. And then you finish off doing the John L. Sullivan bit." And I was like, "Oh, beautiful." And I just turned around to this lad who's a martial artist. And I went, "Do you see that?" I said, "This is why this guy is so good after 4 years, where it took me 2 years to deprogram you." You know what I mean? It was the Greek tragedy of killing your father, because he was a martial artist already. He was like, "Everything I've done is shit." And I was like, no, it isn't shit. It's just different. Be like this guy. And like, look where we are now. Normal people are much better anyway.
Oh, that is one of the biggest barriers. That is, I think they'd call it resistance to unlearning. And I found guys are much worse at that than they're the bigger problem than girls. Like, guys think they know how to fight already. They think they know how to throw a punch already. But when you teach women, women are just like, "Yeah, you just show me what to do and I'll copy that." Like, sometimes they're one of their barriers is confidence. But usually they'll just kind of do what you say because they're like, "Well, you're the coach." But the amount of guys you get, and it's like, "Well, I've done a bit of boxing or I've done a bit of this, and oh, my coach didn't show it like that." I literally had someone recently who's like, did a couple of my boxing classes, got caught a bit, and then was like, "Yeah, but I know boxing. I'm not going to do those classes anymore." And it's like, but you're not the best in the room. Like, if you're not the best in the room, why? But it's that resistance to what they already know, to getting them out of that is so difficult sometimes.
This, I'm sure, is true with like MMA or people watching UFC all the time, but teaching Jeet Kune Do is very much that way, because you're always going to have the Bruce Lee impersonator that shows up to your school and he's dancing around and he's, everything has to be right lead because I read it in the book and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And you're like you wasted your round doing footwork that's not real and not what we're doing. We're supposed to be hitting the pads, and you're like zooming all over the room, and it looks like a cha-cha class. So that's definitely a factor. I'm curious, Mick, or rather Nathan, you're talking about having to adjust the class and ways that we, not that we keep students. It's not about retention, but rather the goals and the motivation of the students evolve over time, right? Hopefully, if they started because they wanted confidence, by the time they've been in it and they're a little more intermediate level, hopefully they've accomplished that confidence at this point. So you're not really perpetuating that in the classes. For example, the program that I have now is, I'm going to relay this to see if it's relatable to you guys at all. The more intermediate level, it's not about fighting. It's not about technique. It's about flow, right? And it's about the ability to kind of get into that flow state in your mind, to get into the zone. It's about accessing that runner's high kind of thing, and being able to just let loose and let the art kind of come through you and start that process. And that, I think, for me, I came up in a program with MKG that is designed that way. That was so exciting. And I needed the foundation to be able to do those things and access that flow. But that flow state is what keeps me in the art, right? More than anything, more than being able to fight or defend myself, more than anything, that kind of thing is really what takes me out of my head, which is a challenge for me, and keeps me in my body and keeps me in the art. And so the curriculum is designed to do that, right? The motivations of the beginner fundamental program are far different than the intermediate and as well the advanced program, because it's not just expanding. I guess my point is not just expanding on the techniques, right? It's expanding on the I don't know, like the reasoning behind the techniques. That's really what the program evolves with. Does that resonate with you guys at all?
Yeah, totally. Exactly what I was coming in thinking about today was, when I kind of mentioned the barriers to learning, I didn't really explain it very well. It's like kind of like, you need to be inclusive with your teaching to make sure everybody's learning, right? Everybody's got roadblocks. Everyone's got an inner life going on that if you're not aware of it, you can't pass the information on. So often it's like you're still trying to teach the thing you're going to teach, but you kind of adjusting it to the people. But one thing you're talking about there is adjusting your material so it kind of gets to more people. Um, And a lot of the things they talk about with like the roadblocks that people face, you're automatically dealing with that. So like they talk about motivation, like motivation to actually learn is obviously one of the biggest roadblocks to actually teaching someone something. You're trying to create, you know, like the passion in them by the way you're talking, the way you're talking about different martial arts and bringing it together. You know, and keeping it interesting by doing that as well. And one of the big things that they talk about as well is like, I mean, obviously there's the hierarchy of needs. So you see like all the things, all the physical reasons why people might not want to be able to learn because of like, you know, it's cold or they're hungry or, you know, things like that, all the way through to like peer pressures and all different things. But one of the big ones is like fear of failure, right? People don't want to try to do something because they fear like either they're worried about their old skills that they weren't good enough, or they're worried about learning new skills. But when you're saying about, you're essentially creating like a about with a flow, like a culture of learning, and where it's going to be okay to like get something wrong because it's a bigger picture. Like you're actually automatically dealing with all those roadblocks, which is like, you know, I was thinking, oh, we'll get into individual things of like, you know, people might be dealing with this emotional issue and we could talk this way to them. And you're just like, oh no, I've just gone from my experience and my love of teaching, and I've kind of gone. I'm just going to just breeze all over that and kind of do it anyway. Like you've like all the way you're talking about your program, you're kind of going straight past all those roadblocks and just speaking to people directly. And I love it, man. I absolutely love it.
I appreciate you saying that, because even when you guys were talking about like, you know, the prior experiences and, oh, I already know how to do that, or, oh no, what I learned before was bad or wrong, you know, that's kind of the hope with this program is like, no, it's all good. You know, like there's going to be, this program is going to have karate stances in it, because I find that a karate stance is building my leg strength in a different way than other things. And so there's value there. That's the value that I find. That's one of the reasons we're going to do it. So the value you attach to what you've learned before, I mean, going to encourage you to be flexible with that value. Don't throw the value away. Don't throw the thing away, but allow yourself to see it in a new light. You know, that's what this program can allow for. And I think a little bit of genuine humility, or at least some kindness through humility as coaches, goes a long way by going like, look, man, you know, oh, we're not doing that thing you learned in Taekwondo, or this thing you're learning today makes you feel like that was useless. Man, I think what you did was cool. I'm going to have to ask you to show me that sometime. You know what I mean? I never learned that. I think that looks pretty slick. I don't know if I would use it, but you're going to have to show me that sometime. Just that little bit of acknowledgement of the fact that they did work hard at that, that can really go a long way, you know. And at the end of the day, when we're 80 years old, are you going to look back and be like, boy, I really wasted my time on those Taekwondo kicks? Or no, of course not. It's all going to be value, right? Like it's all grist for the mill. It's all good stuff. And so, yeah, I appreciate it, because my hope is that this program kind of highlights that as its primary theme.
But just as you're saying this, it's like one of the things that it's a criticism sometimes that gets leveled at anybody who does any sort of drills-based martial arts, which is, you know, but would that work for real? I know, and that's a thing we have done to death. You know, it's that whole, yeah, people are still arguing over whether or not trapping works. I can't believe it, man. It's 2021. You know, deal with it, guys. But the whole paradox of martial arts that I've always found, which is when we collaborate, we get a lot better, a lot quicker, right? But unfortunately, most people who have some sort of understanding of martial arts is, they immediately think that it should be either contested or it should be adversarial. And when I'm listening to Kurt talking about his new program, like the one thing that keeps coming back to me is that quote that Guru Sensei comes out with, which is, a great teacher creates an environment where knowledge reveals itself, right? And I love that, because it's that bit where it's like, right, okay, you won't know if it's worth anything if you haven't failed, or you haven't tried, or you haven't done it. But it's I just want to get you on your program that you're bringing out, and yeah, you can use it as an infomercial if you want, but I'm just thinking about as you've developed this, Kurt, how much are you looking at? I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, because you're aiming this at a completely different market now to be successful, right? And you're not primarily looking for martial artists, because anybody who's done martial arts will at least have seen the state of nirvana that you can reach, and yada 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 that comes with it. So when you get normal people that just come in and go, shit man, this shit is really cool. So how do you aim that, and how do the collaboration? By the way, I think collaboration that's our default position as a species, because I think if we work together, we'll get it. Whereas adversarial doesn't work. I want to know how you're going to approach this when you're teaching drills, and how are you going to explain to people about the value that they're getting? Like in the moment as it's going on. Could you just explain that to me?
Yeah, like, you mean like, is well, okay, I'll put it this way. I think the value in things like drills or whatever, I think it's just it's inherent. I think the joy of the practice itself is the practice. It is the point, like the destination is the way kind of thing. You know what I mean? You're doing it because the act of doing it is the point of doing it. Whereas what I see a lot in the martial art world is we're doing this drill, or we're against doing this drill for the sake of being able to fight a person, or for the sake of winning a title, or for the sake of X, right? Whatever that thing is. But that's not my take. I'm doing the drill because I like to do the drill. That's it. You know what I mean? That's enough for me. Is this going to make me better at fighting? One thing that makes you better at fighting is fighting a lot of people, right? And I don't think that's a good thing to do. I don't think that's healthy. I think that probably makes you, or means you're an asshole, and I'm not really interested in being an asshole anymore. I spent enough time in my life being that guy when I was younger, and I'm not interested in perpetuating that in other people. I think that there's self-defense or fighting skills inherent in every martial art. If you have the education, the ability, the open-mindedness, the intuition, the inquisitive nature to dissect it and pull those things out, right? That's why JKD has appealed to me as a philosophy, because it really encourages that research process. I'm fascinated by that. I just love martial art as a whole. I love the idea of martial art. I love the aesthetic, the imagery, the whole vibe of martial art. I think is so great. I get why people are into yoga, even though I'm not into it, because I'm into this. So I get why people are into that. I get why people want to paint their face and be crazy when they're watching football or something like that, because I'm into this. I get that. So to me, the point of it is the practice, and the goal is joy. The goal is to be engaged in something that stokes your engine a little bit, right? That stokes your fire, that gets you engaged in your body, engaged in your life, that allows you, like Nathan said, to leave after a little bit better than you walked in, right? And that's the whole deal. If your goal is to be better at defending yourself against maybe an active threat that's in your life or in your community, private training is good for that. Especially if you do have an active threat, then doing a threat assessment and taking the time with a trained professional who understands the real nature of violence, not the nature of martial art, but the nature of violence, and going forward from that place, I think is good. But I don't want to market a business or a service that way, and I don't want to perpetuate some of those feelings in people. I would rather this practice be something that takes them away from that feeling and that experience, and takes them out of that place of anxiety, because that's what the art's done for me. So how would I aim or explain the drill is just showing the drill, and hopefully having a little bit of passion and a smile on my face allows that to replicate in them as well.
I'm so inspired by you talking about your program in so many ways. It's like, I mean, just the simple act of designing a program helps learning outcomes better anyway, because you're not just it's not, it's not all over the place. You're going, oh, I want them to do this first, and I want them to do this drill. So just the simple fact that you're taking time to build this program up from scratch, it already puts you a step up. And then the fact that you're talking about some of the outcomes being joy, like, I mean, because that's what we got out of it. But to actually articulate that and actually want that to be one of the main parts of it, I mean, that's we talked about earlier. People getting into it, and the tourists, but like, people are just going to try stuff out. Like, and if they just come in and they just get joy out of it and love it and enjoy it and get a sampler of different martial arts, that's amazing. But also, if they wanted to carry on, then having appreciation of everything and not being that guy online saying, well, my style's better than your style, like, that's going to make them a better martial artist and a better person. I just want to say, like, just even the direction you're going with it, congratulations, man. I really admire what you're doing.
Thanks, man. Here I am trying not to get emotional. It means a lot. Thanks. And we had a rough road, man. So this is confidence inspiring. I appreciate you guys. That's the thing I needed to put on my questionnaire, was confidence with some of this stuff. So I appreciate it, and like you said, the appreciation of the spectrum of martial art, the appreciation for martial art, that I think is so important, to not just be the guy in line saying my style is better than your style. How redundant, how boring. And I don't blame anyone if they're offended by that. You know what I mean? Even if everyone's offended by all things all the time today, whatever. If somebody's like, look, I spent 15 years in karate, kiss my ass for telling me that I wasted my time. Hell yeah, I agree with you. I never understood or had any value in belts, right? And it was one of my students, I was knocking belts to her, or in front of her, and she took me to task, and she said, I'm gonna tell you right now, if my house caught on fire, the first thing I grab is my partner. The second thing I grab is my black belt. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I had never thought of it that way. And I had a massive shift to the point where now I'm created a black belt program. You know what I mean? For that reason. I don't have a black belt. So I don't know, maybe that's inappropriate for me to do it. But it made me realize, like, people's experiences are their experiences, and boy, if somebody has applied themselves to something for that long, you shouldn't have an opinion about it.
Oh, well,
It's
you think of the time and the emotion,
yeah,
the dedication that's to it. It's like telling them that their husband or wife is shit, and they should and they wasted their time, or their job's rubbish. Like,
yeah. And then if they're upset about that, you're like calling them a snowflake for it or something. That's ridiculous. Of course they're going to be upset about that, and they should be upset about that. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that thing. Did they waste their time because you think they're going to be worse off fighting someone in a parking lot somewhere because of that? Who cares? I hope you're not fighting someone in a parking lot. That's thing one. You know what I mean? And so long as we always say, so long as you're genuine, and rather you're honest about what you're teaching, so long as, if I'm teaching something that I don't think is going to be the best thing to protect you at 3 a.m. when someone's broken into your home, as long as I'm honest about that, then I'm free to teach whatever I think is of value. And that's the point of all of this. Is capoeira going to help you in the middle of the night when you don't have room to flip around and somebody's broken into your home and I've got 2 feet between my bed and the dresser next to it or something like that? No, it's not. But damn, if those people are not full of joy when you see them train, if they're not loving life for the moments that they're in that program, and that stuff, man, that gets me fired up. And so, I think if we can allow people to access those things, especially in 2021, that's gold, right? There's magic to that. And to do anything that gets in the way of that, to me, I find, as a martial artist, I find that really upsetting. Anytime somebody puts down somebody else as an artist, or the art itself, you're just getting in the way of other people accessing improvement. And I don't know, shame on that, I guess. That's my thing.
Well, it's funny, just as you were saying this, Kurt, it's like, you know, the whole thing behind this was why you start martial arts, yeah. And this is like, I'm going to pose this question to you now, Kurt. First of all, why do we start martial arts? But I think this would be a really good point for you to go. So, Kurt, why have you started to teach martial arts differently? Because obviously we can use the example, what COVID and how it's affected your business and everything. But like listening to you today, I'm inspired, because the thing is, this is Kurt with fire in his belly, back believing in himself, in shit that changes things for real, man. And like what I want to know is, I know, I hope I haven't answered the question that it was just these external factors, but why are you looking at it in a completely different way? And yeah, man, take this episode home with this, baby. Take this episode home.
I don't know. You know, part of it is, if you can hear in the background, having kids and just life does change, and that changes you. You know, my priorities, I feel different now. I have a son now. Somehow that is a little bit different just for me. Trying to like be a better role model and be a healthier person in my life up here, you know, and that's always a big factor for me. But, you know, I don't know that I necessarily feel like I'm trying to teach differently. I guess I'm just trying without trying. I'm trying to get out of my own way a little bit more, right? And go, look, this is really what I think. This is really what I believe. And to hell with the circumstances. You know what I mean? Like this is really what I think martial art is. And I part of it is social media, looking at, suddenly my feed again is just full of people arguing about martial art, and I don't understand it, and it's exhausting after a while. And it to me, it completely gets in the way of what the mission is. And if that is the mission for people, while I have to respect that, I don't understand it. And so I'm excited about trying to get people excited, and I'm excited about getting people excited about martial art, because that's the thing that really gets me fired up. And showing the beauty of each individual art for what it is without apologizing for what it isn't. Showing the nature of where it comes from, the history and the reasoning behind it. You know, a lot of the stuff that we see where people are talking negative about an art, they don't understand the context in which that art came up, the environment in which that art was developed. I think those things are endlessly fascinating. I would like this program to feel like a documentary that you're a part of in that way, where you're really learning about this whole big topic, you know. And I think is a worthwhile goal, and it'll be a bit of an experiment. But I hope that it works. I hope that we can reach people with it locally and otherwise, because I just think there's so much value to this. And by pigeonholing it and calling it one thing, whatever that thing is, I really think is just an awful mistake. And so why not just say, screw it, we're just going to show all of it, and we're not going to apologize for it. And I'm just going to try my best to be my authentic self in the process, in hopes that encourages other people to do the same. The last thing I'll say is what I said off mic to you guys in the beginning, is this show and having these weekly conversations with you guys about the breadth of martial art, the impact of martial art, about the process of teaching, of being a coach, has been incredibly inspirational, motivational, educational in this process. I have a better understanding of I hope, a better depth of understanding about areas that I don't have a background in. You know, Nathan's input on what combat sports are like, and what you do I have combat sports written on my website now, and that's really because of you. You know what I mean? I think of you every time I look at the homepage. It's right up there on the top. And so having these experiences and these conversations where we're really starting to understand, or to communicate with each other, and hopefully with you, the listener or the watcher, that there's a lot to this, right? There's so much meat on the bone here. And to again, to call it one thing, what a drag, you know, because that would mean all we're doing is sitting here every week talking about just telling stories about fighting people. I don't, after a while, that's a pretty damn boring show after a while, So I laughed in the beginning. I was tempted to call the program World of Martial Arts because of this show and because of the conversations and experiences I've had with you guys. And I do hope that the program does something to pay that forward and to share that with other people. That's what this show is about. Understanding that there's a whole great big world of martial arts. That's what Will Henshaw, the producer, host with the most, that's behind the scenes here, has facilitated for everybody through the videos and through these episodes for a long time now, and that's always inspired me for years now. And I think that trying to do more of this like we're doing now and bringing that out of virtual spaces into real spaces, that's the new frontier, that's the new pursuit. And I'm just grateful for it. I'm grateful for you guys, and I'm grateful for World of Martial Arts. You're with the World of Martial Arts Show. Don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, and share the program. And if you have suggestions for topics or questions on an episode, let us know and we'll feature it in an upcoming show.